On this episode of Damsels in the DMs.
Dear damsels, I just graduated college and moved home. I feel like a total loser as I was going to move to NYC with my boyfriend and he broke up with me right after graduation. How do I move on? Stop feeling sorry for myself and start living my life? Question mark. Sincerely, lost in love and life.
This message is intended as a reminder that we are not licensed professionals, not psychiatrists or psychologists. If you have a serious problem, please seek professional help. The National Suicide Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255.
There's some damsels in the DM.
Yes, queen.
Tell us what's the vibe. There's some damsels in the DM. Please tell us what's the vibe. DMs, yeah we see them, yeah we read them. DMs, we don't need them, we just leave them.
Please.
Yeah.
It's going down in the DMs. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Damsels in the DMs. I'm Lauren.
I'm Ash.
And I'm Alejandro, and today we are super excited to have on Brenda and Julia of the Rawring 20s podcast. How are you both? Hello.
We're so excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
We're so excited.
We have 5 people on this episode. That is insane. I don't
crazy.
think we've ever had an episode. It's more like a round table, like a red table talk
Yes.
version of it. But this is so fun. I love that. So many different personalities on here. This is going to be a great episode.
It's going to be so fun.
Well, to jump in, I would love for you to share with our listeners, a little bit about yourselves, a little bit of the background, and why you started Rawring 20s.
Absolutely. So I'm Julia. Brenda, you want to say hey so they know your voice?
Hey.
Wow, she took that direction very literally.
I said hey. It's also hilarious because that's definitely not like my normal way I would ever say hey. So that's inauthentic.
She felt put on the spot.
I did.
But Brenda and I have been doing our show for a little over 2 years now. Is that right? Yeah. Wow, it's so crazy. And Brenda and I have been friends for almost like 20 years, which is insane. Yeah.
Wow.
Fucking insane. We met in what we like to call a group for elite nice people, which is in our elementary school. They paired up like the 5th and 6th graders with the kindergartners in a group called Peacemakers, which we call elite nice people. And we like taught them how to be nice to each other.
Not bully each other.
Yeah, and not bully each other, which is just hilarious. Like looking what we do now about like talking about our like real and raw most inner insecurities for the whole world to hear. So that's how we met. And then we started doing the show because we graduated college and were thrust out into the real world. And we're like, oh shit, we didn't expect any of this. No one tells you how hard it's going to be. Everybody makes you think like you should have it all together right upon graduation. Perfect life, perfect job, perfect boyfriend, perfect house, like perfect vacations and Instagrams. And that's just not the case. And so we found ourselves having these conversations and we were like, we possibly cannot be the only people feeling like this.
Yeah.
We need to put it out there to include more people in the conversation so that people feel less alone and selfishly get people to come and talk to us on the podcast who have it more together so we can cheat and, work our way through it with their advice.
Yeah. And it's become like such an important part of our lives. Like we probably to an annoying degree reflect on what an impact this show has had in our lives. We literally said the other day, we're like, do you think everybody thinks like this or everybody reflects on this? Not to make us seem superior, but it's just like this show has forced us to dive into like the depths of our brains and really analyze like, is this really what I want? Because I think after college, like we both had this feeling, we tried to overachieve a significant amount while growing up and whatnot and do the best that we could, make our parents proud, whichever direction you want to take it. Or obviously everybody has a sense of wanting to belong and fit in and all the things in between. So we felt that pressure. And then when we had these conversations, we were like, no way. Like I'm feeling so stressed, confused, and also I think there's this sense of just genuinely not knowing, like not knowing what is actually right for me. Do I even enjoy this? Is this a direction I want to take? Do I want to do what I studied in college? Like all these different directions that really make it so complicated to know what the heck is going on. And it's really hard, I think, especially in the world of social media, which we talk about all the time, to feel like somehow that you're not the only one that's going through it, because we post all these highlight reels and we go on and on about all the coolest things that are going on in our lives, but aren't sharing this deep stuff. And we're like, no, we have to talk about the deep stuff. And luckily, the people that we've connected with along the way have not only given us so much wisdom, but have made us feel really confident in the fact that because we're having these conversations now with people like you, with people come on the show and putting it out there for people our age or beyond to listen to, like our lives are going to be so much better because of it, because we're talking about this stuff now. So it's become so important.
The topic of FOMO is so prevalent these days. Yeah. And one of the things that I really appreciated while listening to episodes of Rawring 20s is you address with your guests and between the two of you, what I kind of have been thinking is like, instead of fear of missing out, a fear of looking inward. And you have guests that, have really poignant pieces of advice and anecdotes that really help us as listeners really understand, or develop that deeper connection with ourselves to be able to answer those questions of, is this really meant for me? Is this really going to give me that fulfilling, like, thing that I'm like desiring,
Yeah.
And I really love and respect that about Rawring 20s and both of you, Brenda, Julia.
Thank you.
Well, you guys are just so relatable. And I know you addressed that, Brenda. It is just like, it is so nice and like comforting to see that I'm not the only one who's going through A, B, or C. Like there's so many other people like that who are just like me that are going through the same things. Like it's nice to have that comfort that like, cool, like I'm not alone. Like I'm not the only weirdo over here that thinks this or feels this. And your podcast is just so great because there are a lot of people in their 20s who feel like, they've gone through the college or they've like studied XYZ in college. And now they're like, well, shit, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm not happy. I don't want to, I did that. I studied nutrition and pre-dental, was going to go to dental school, graduated. And I was like, I'm not happy. Like, why would I think I could be a dentist? Like, I'm grossed out by I'm so squeamish. I hate people's mouths and teeth. Like, why? Why would I even think
I cannot imagine you at all being a dentist.
Me neither.
I wouldn't have made it to being a dentist. My first day I would have been like, nope, fuck that. I'm out. Bye.
But it's probably like what you thought you were supposed to do. And we do so much in our early 20s and we're like learning this so hardcore is that we spend so much of our adolescence doing what we think we should be doing. And not until we've come into our mid 20s, I would say, have we started asking ourselves, well, what do we really want to be doing? Mm-hmm. And it's really hard. It's a really hard question to ask. And it's even harder when you've been doing the shoulds for so long and then have to break that pattern.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like a reprogramming that has to take place. Or what is it? A reverse of conditioning.
Yeah. Well, we talk about cognitive dissonance all the time, that we're thinking one way and doing something that is the complete opposite.
You mentioned that you feel like you don't have your shit together, but I'm going to counter that. First of all, by asking, where in your 20s are you guys?
You're 26.
Yeah.
Okay. That is still very young. And you've got 4 more years of your 20s. Also, you guys have this great podcast. You're learning so much by bringing people onto your podcast. You're actively, doing stuff for yourselves to make yourselves better people. You guys have your shit together. You're talking about cognitive dissonance. What? I think it's safe to say you have your shit together. You know what you're talking about. You got it.
That's very validating. It's validating. And it's what's the coolest part, I think, is that so much of this, now we fucking wear our heart on our sleeve. Are you kidding? Our brain, you could look at it through the through our feet on the podcast. But it's so crazy because it's all these things. When we listen back to old episodes ourselves, sometimes not just for fun, but if we're digging up for quotes or things like that. And it's so crazy to reflect on how scary certain things were to share at a certain point. I remember the very first time I opened up about what felt like the most shameful thing I've ever experienced. And one, I felt so much lighter after sharing it. But just to like look back and I'm like, wow, like we have become better people, or we've led with so much more kindness towards ourselves, towards others. Doesn't mean we don't falter. Doesn't mean we don't, have those days where we're down on ourselves or whatever it may be, because we're human. But we've just learned to navigate so differently and to just carry so much less shame around like just being a human.
Well, being open, like being the ability to be open about your life, like fully open and fully transparent to other people, you're giving them a service that not a lot of people can give. So like this is a gift that you're giving people, and you don't even know how many lives you're touching by just having this podcast and being.
You guys are doing it too. You guys are doing it too.
But regardless, it's so cool. Like I remember, Ju, I don't even know if you remember this, that we used to like hype ourselves up before every single episode, because it takes like a lot. Like we had like this is so
oh my God, I forgot about that. We had like a little mantra that we read.
Yes. And
how cute of us.
What was the mantra?
We would each read a line about like we've never shared this with anyone.
I forgot about it, honestly.
Yeah.
Exclusive content.
Exclusive content on Damsels in the
Never
DMs.
heard before. Only on Damsels in the DMs.
Literally. And it's so funny because I'm like, wow, we don't even do that anymore. Not because we're lazy, but we don't feel like we have to. But we switched off. Literally has our initials. We're inspiring women to be their authentic selves. We're brave for being vulnerable.
We're so
it's not
cute.
funny. It was really sweet.
We're really cute.
So cute. We're giving others a voice and opportunity to share their stories.
Wait, no, I know you think this is embarrassing or like,
I'm so embarrassed.
I love it. Like, honestly, like I feel like more people need to do this when they wake up. Like go stand in front of the mirror and give yourself that self-love. Give yourself
add it to the morning routine, please.
Adding it to my morning routine.
We should put it out for people to do as their morning mirror mantras.
Because those are great mantras. A lot of people struggle with coming up with mantras, and you guys have a whole list. Like pick your top 5 from the list and say it to yourself every morning.
Oh, I'd love that.
Well, speaking of things that empower us, I'm curious what you feel like has changed the most, going from you started this when you're 24, you're now in your 26, you've created this podcast to help people get through their 20s. What do you feel like you've learned about your 20s from starting this to right now?
Yeah, I mean, so much. I like probably can't even consolidate it, but I'll try. I think the biggest thing for me has definitely been to, like we talked about before, just like being authentic and leaning into what we really want. But that's been really key for me, because honestly, all growing up, I was very much like people, I heard it the other day, people pleasing, something. But I really I care really deeply. And as a result, I invest so much in other people. And I think I'm constantly like operating out of this place of doing for others, or what more can I give, or honestly, what can I achieve in order to make other people proud. And Julia and I had this whole conversation, actually, I think on our latest episode, just about my parents. So I was born in Paraguay in South America. Don't know if you know that. Probably not, because it's a very random fact. But
I saw a lot of social media. I did a full deep dive.
Oh, there you go, full deep. And a lot of times I feel this like very underlying pressure to like constantly make my parents' sacrifice of like moving to the United States like worthwhile, even though they're not thinking about that at all. But anyways, I feel like I'm always striving for something bigger and greater, and to impress and to make people happy. And so for me, really leaning into asking myself, what do I want? How can I show up unapologetically? How can I show up confidently? And even at all, aligning with any sort of confidence is huge, because I struggled with my body image so much growing up, like such a back and forth, such a pull, such a difficult relationship with like food and my body and like all these things. So for me, learning more about my worth, learning that people love me for my energy and for the person that I am and for my heart, and also being able to just release this pressure of what people may or may not be thinking, I think has made all the difference in the way that I carry myself.
Yeah. We actually wanted to ask you about that, because we saw that a lot of your work centered on body positivity. So we get so many messages from people, especially young women in their 20s, I would say, like, I don't feel comfortable with my body. I don't like how I look. So I don't think that I'm ready to go on a dating app, or I don't want to go on a dating app until I lose 10 pounds, or, you know, I'm not going to bars until I really focus on my eating. I'm not going to dinners with my friends to save calories because we're going to go drinking later. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard so many different anecdotes along those lines. So I'm curious how you would advise people in your work and on your podcast to be confident in themselves and feel positive going into their own dating lives, because this is a dating podcast.
Of course. Yeah. And so I always feel like almost hypocritical ever talking about dating. So I'm like, oh, I've only basically dated one person my whole life. Me and my boyfriend have been together for a decade now.
Wow,
so close to how long usually I've been friends. And he's incredible. He always has been, and I'm very lucky. But I've obviously struggled with my body image and all that throughout our relationship. Of course, different than through dating, but still. And I think the biggest advice that I can give is no number, no size, no anything will ever actually be the thing that makes you happy. Like, even though I had a difficult relationship with both food and my body, it was never about the food. It wasn't because I was, doing anything. I wasn't trying to like hurt myself or anything. I just wasn't feeling worthy, and I always tied my happiness to this idea of, oh, I'll be happy when I hit this number on the scale. I'll be happy when this skirt fits. I'll be happy when, and I just recognized over time that one, that's not what other people value. And I've also honestly seen it firsthand, like, and so has Julia. My body has changed significantly from the age of 15 to now, just as all of ours, I'm sure, has. Mine probably on a little bit more of a drastic scale, just based on the way that I treated it. But my boyfriend has loved me the same amount and more throughout the entire time, no matter what I looked like, no matter what I weighed, no matter any of those things. And he's always known the type of person that I am. So my thing is that whoever you come across, of course, attraction is important. I'm not denying that, like, there's a level of like connection that we feel in terms of physical attraction to people, but the person that is meant to be your person, the person that you will ultimately end up with, or in dating, like, they're going to enjoy you and connect with you because of who you are, not what you look like. And that's not to invalidate how you might feel in your body, because it's a really fucking hard feeling to feel unhappy and to, your clothes to not fit right and all that stuff. I guess my biggest advice would be the times in which I've shown myself most that, like, damn, nobody gives a shit what I look like, especially people that love me, has been when I haven't wanted to go out into a social situation because I felt unworthy of it and have gone anyway. And then the people around me showed me directly, like, we love you for you, without even saying it, just through their actions, through the way they talk to me. And I think that in itself battled a lot of things. And I think that no way that you may look means that you're unworthy of like living a fulfilled life. We can be working on ourselves, on our hearts, even on our bodies. Like, I've had to heal a lot of those aspects of things, but I used to have so much against just like pursuing any sort of fitness goals. I'm actively pursuing fitness goals, but I know that there is no superiority between a version of myself 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or who I am right now.
I love that you said that. Because we are constantly growing, we're constantly evolving, and there's no perfect way to be, and we have to accept ourselves at every single stage along the way.
Yeah.
I think so often we can put limits on ourselves because of fear, and we make excuses for ourselves because we're scared.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the question is like, do you want to live your life being scared all the time, or do you want to actually just go live it and see what happens? And the worst thing that I think, and we've learned this through the podcast and through just being in our 20s, is like the worst thing that happens is you win or you learn. Like, you went on the date and maybe you learned that person wasn't right for you, and you go to another
still
one.
A form of winning, right?
Yes.
Like, learning is winning.
Yep. And so I think
Just a different
for
form.
anything. Yeah, exactly. And like I think that, you asked us what is one of the things that we feel like has changed in us between starting the show and now. And I think for both of us, especially for me, I've really learned that lesson, like that failure actually really isn't real. Like, it's a made up thing, and you win or you learn, which actually is also winning, because you've learned something and you've grown, and you now like can do something at a level higher than you could do it before. And I feel like that is something that has kind of very newly clicked for me, especially like, you guys know I'm an actor, what that's like, being in an industry that tells you like no all the time, makes you feel like you're failing all the time. Like, actually, no, I'm not failing, I'm just learning something new so I can do better next time, or do different next time, or and I think that goes for like the same thing with like body image and dating, and it all comes back to fear. And if we can change that way that we look at fear, like, and change the way that we define failure, it's just a chance to learn.
Yeah. I think about that when it comes to acting all the time, because like if you didn't give yourself the opportunity to pursue what you love, how much would you hate yourself if you never tried, right? Like, yeah, being rejected all the time really hurts and it's hard, but how much harder would it be if you never tried and never gave yourself the opportunity to have that learning experience?
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And I think it goes for any pursuit across the board of like, we have one life. So I personally would rather live like and maybe quote unquote fail pursuing what I want to do, whether that's like pursuing a person or a job or a move or whatever it may be, than like being like, well, I didn't try.
Julia, on this subject, since we are
Mhm.
talking about kind of, pursuing acting no matter what, like having a safe, not a safe space to fail, because we just discussed that failure isn't a thing. How have you continued to stay inspired to pursue this career in entertainment? Like what are some things that you do to motivate yourself to keep going and not to give up?
I mean, it's hard. You guys know it's hard. But I think and my self-belief, like based on the day, is like it fluctuates. And I think like that's just the honest truth of it. Like sometimes I'm like, fuck yeah, like it's gonna be great. And sometimes I'm like, I hate myself. Like, why am I doing this? Like, and that's just like we're all human and we're gonna have those fluctuations and those feelings. But I think that there's two things that I would like point to of why I get up and still do it every day. One is that, and I think I have this notion has been reinforced through doing our podcast and getting to talk to so many like successful women, of this belief that like if you just like be a good person and work really hard, like that the universe will show up for you. And like when I'm feeling really down, I just try to remind myself that. And I know that that might be more spiritual for like someone else out there who might not have that way of thinking, but for me, just being like, you are a good person, you work really hard, like if you keep going, the universe will show up for you. And I've seen that in my life. Like I've seen the universe show up for me when I've thought that the house has been burnt down, when I thought the bridges have been broken, when I thought that I failed. Like I've seen it show up for me and like things actually turn out better because of like the failure or the thing that had been broken or whatever. So that's number one. And number two, having routine, like having daily habits and routine, I think I would be lost without, like especially when you're someone who is mostly on your own schedule, unless you're like on a project that has you on a schedule in between things. Like having a routine, a morning routine, like doing my yoga, doing my meditation, like whatever those things are for you that keep you grounded, has been like super life-changing to me. Just knowing like I can get up every day and check things off my list, like that's a win. Even if I didn't book a job that day, like I still won.
Yeah. I think that's great because our career is so unstable. There's no guarantee, there's no security, we don't really have that much control over it. We only have control over our talent and the effort that we do put into, jobs and whatever else there is. But outside of that, we have no control of how it's going to go. And so having those healthy habits and those routines that you stick to is your way of kind of being like, I'm in control. Like I still have control over this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And Brenda knows I do this thing I do wins at the end of every day. And I just like write them in my notes app in my phone before I go to bed. Of just like, what were my wins of the day? Cause sometimes like with this career, like you can go through the day and be like, fuck, like I did nothing to work on my career today. Or like, I didn't have any auditions or I didn't book anything or I got to know, like that happens all the time. And so just having like that little moment for myself before I go to bed, to just be like, okay, what were the wins of the day? Like I sent an email to this person, or like I made my bed, I did my yoga, I spent time with my dog, like the littlest things I put on there. And then I'm like, oh shit, like I had a great day. And like I did things that work towards my career on most days. Like, and it's just like a good little reminder, because sometimes, we have a negative bias, our brain has a negative bias. And sometimes it's just so easy to be like, no, today was a failure. But then to remind yourself like, no, girl, no, it wasn't.
Yeah,
I like that they're not all entertainment industry things either, that it can be like little things like,
oh yeah, put everything on there. My agent actually taught me that. Get a good agent, that's another one. But like my
great agent.
Yeah, he's the best. He rocks. UGA talent, I'll shout him out. But he he was like, put everything on there. Like put making your bed on there, put brushing your teeth on there. And I'm like, okay, I'll do whatever you say.
Yeah, and I think it's such a good tip overall. And I was gonna point out the same thing because I think like a lot of times, and I'm sure especially for you guys, like for me, the full-time job that I have could not be further away from what the podcast is about. But it's like it's the podcast is so soul-filling for me, you know? So I think it's so important to like separate our worth and our identity from what we do or from our achievements or stuff like that. So I love that that's something that Julia does, and that I think it's such a good tip to encompass, because I think also like to give all of us pats on the back as we rise to like new levels of whatever a past version of ourselves was. It's like we stop appreciating and celebrating these things about ourselves because we're like, oh, well, that's like my new normal. So, you know, it doesn't deserve celebration. Like I know I'm at least that way where I'm like, oh, like I don't know. I let's just say if it's exercise related, like I'm like, oh, I lifted this much, but I did that last time. So like, it's not as big of a deal, where in reality, it still is like, oh my gosh, you got up. Now I like commute longer to work. Amazing that I'm waking up early, but like, I don't celebrate little things like that anymore when it's so important to do so. And to also make ourselves, our identity in our lives more than just about what we do.
Yeah.
I love leading with gratitude every day.
Yeah.
I think that's another piece that I think helps make a busy week or a busy day just more at ease.
Mm-hmm. All right, guys, before we continue with the show, I wanted to talk a little bit about Noom. Noom uses the latest in behavioral science to empower people to take control of their health for good through a combination of psychology, technology, and human coaching on their platform to help millions of users meet their personal health and wellness goals. A lot of people face pressures to change themselves to fit other people's expectations, and the more freeing solution is to find things that work for you. Noom understands that everyone's weight loss is unique, and what works for someone else doesn't mean it'll work for you. That's why Noom's approach adapts to your lifestyle. It's flexible and focuses on progress, not perfection, allowing you to work towards goals at a pace that's comfortable for you. Noom Weight makes it easy to start your weight loss journey and stay on track with personalized lessons to help you gain confidence and practical knowledge, one-on-one coaching, and a cognitive behavioral approach that teaches you how to be mindful of your habits. So start building better habits for healthier long-term results. Sign up for your trial at noom.com/believe. Again, that's Noom, NOOM.com/believe. BLEAV.
This is not an ad at all, but I have the 5-minute journal that I don't know if you guys
people love that.
love it because
love
you can
it.
integrate like the gratefulness. So you'll write what you're grateful for and like 3 ways that you want 3 things that you could do to make your day great or something. And then in the evening you'll come back and write 3 amazing things that happened that day.
I love
So
that.
like integrating what you do about your wins, and then Alejandro about having gratitude in the morning. Not that you need a journal, like a printed journal, you could write this
But
on.
no, it's so like setting yourself up for success to do that, because sometimes you're like, that's why I literally do it in my phone, because I used to like felt like I had to do it in a journal, and then when my journal wasn't there, I'd be like, well, I can't do my wins today, like I can't like get my journal, like, and I'm like, no, you can do it, you could just do it in your notes app. It's not better if you do it on like a nice piece of parchment or if you do it in your notes app, like it's still just as good. But like sometimes we could trick ourselves to being like, oh, I can only have this if I do this. Like, no, I can do my wins. Like,
here's a good one for people trying to hype themselves up for dating. Like it's gratitude, intention, something I love about myself, because I would never freaking think to do that otherwise. Like I would never just like naturally decide to do that. Something I'm looking forward to, vibe check, thoughts I need to be thinking. So like really intentional.
Yes,
But I'll definitely send it to you.
just so good.
Wait,
Send it to all of us, please.
your relationship status.
What?
We didn't even get your relationship status.
Oh, well, this is the anecdote that I feel like I had to tell you because your show is called Damsels in the DMs. I have a boyfriend, and I started dating my boyfriend because he slid into my DMs.
Oh,
Love that.
So, it works.
wow. Wait, and how long have you guys been together for?
We've been together for like 8 months officially, but like more of like year and a half unofficially.
So he
Definitely more,
didn't
yeah.
take you on a date by sliding into your DMs. You didn't know. No, you didn't know each other.
Okay, no. So private. So we went to college together.
Where did you go to college?
We went to NYU.
Both of you?
Cute.
Yeah.
And are you still in New York?
No, me and my boyfriend both went to NYU, and
got it.
no, now we're both in LA. Brenda's in New York.
Oh my God, then we all have to hang out.
I know. Sorry, Brenda, we'll
Sorry,
FaceTime you.
I wanted all the
We'll
details.
FaceTime you. But yeah, so my boyfriend and I both went to NYU for college. That was a long time ago now. And we had we were friends, friends in college, but we like never hooked up anything in college. And then we like kind of lost touch. I was like dating somebody else. And then I guess he noticed through my Instagram that me and my long-term boyfriend at the time had broken up. And he started like sliding into my DMs. I ignored his 3 DMs. 3 ignored. And then on the 4th one, I was like, fuck, like I guess I should answer this kid. Like we were friends in college, but this was like 3 years after college at this point. No, it was like 2, whatever. But like, I was like, I guess I should answer this kid. Like I feel kind of bad. He slid into my DMs 4 times, which I always make fun of him for. And then, yeah, he was like, I was still in New York at the time, and he was like, I'm in Boston, because he had moved out to LA right after college. He was like, I'm in Boston, like I will literally come fly to New York if I could take you on a date. And he did. And now we're together.
Oh my God. I love that.
Yeah.
Does he have any single friends who are 29 and above?
Yes, I'll put out the feelers. We'll
have
find
his
someone.
values and morals.
Yeah. But it's so crazy that like I just thought it was so funny because of your show title, and I was like, yeah, ignored 3 times, but the DMs do work if you're persistent, I guess.
My boyfriend slid into Osh's DMs last night.
Yeah, he did. He did. I went to his birthday.
Oh my
I will
God.
be there.
Scandal.
Lauren texted me an invite today, and I was like, I already got invited by Brian. Thanks. So
Yeah.
I'm on the VIP list.
Brenda,
Who are you?
In
Who
New
are
York.
you? I'm sorry.
I said, Brenda, you gotta come. It's in New York, so please join us.
Ooh, I would love to. I know, and I'm also we're trying to visit Julia eventually this year at some point. We're trying to plan for her birthday too. So our paths will cross somehow.
Yeah.
I got to know more about this decade-long boyfriend. How did you guys meet? And how is it going? Are you both living in the same city? What's happening?
Yeah. So it's so funny to reflect on this, 'cause, like, not to sound like a grandparent, but it literally feels like forever ago, like to the point where at the time when we had met, like I was such a fascinating teenager, right, Julia? Like I just like really wanted attention, and I just don't feel like I'm like that anymore. But anyways, like we were at a surprise party of a friend in literally middle school, and
It's so cute.
I was going on a trip to Boston with my family, a family trip to Boston, and I was like asking all of his friends around him for their phone numbers and hoping he would ask me for mine.
What a scheme. If you need to get a boy's number at a party, Brenda just gave you the way to do it.
That's apparently the scoop in whatever freaking year it was, 2009.
Just ask all his friends for their numbers.
Like, what type of a
It was
person is that?
really
But
good.
but it worked. We just started texting more honestly, and really weirdly, he went to a private school, so he didn't go to school with me and Julia, even though we were in the same age and lived in the same exact town. So we had very different circles, and wow, this is so weird to reflect on. And then ultimately we talked for a while. We used to Uvu, which is so funny. Do you guys remember Uvu?
Why does that sound so familiar? Yes.
Wait, what's
Chatting
Uvu?
site?
Kind of like Omegle, but
It's like Zoom, but olden times.
Yeah.
Olden times.
Olden times.
You were little.
in olden times.
Olden times Zoom? Uvu? I don't remember.
Was
that.
it after Skype? Because I remember Skype like vividly.
Yeah, I remember Skype.
I think it must have been like maybe around
It was
the same
after.
time.
It was after Skype,
Okay.
After
and it
Skype,
was
after
only
Skype.
available. It was there for like a brief 2 months or like a few
it was
months,
like
and then
a
it
short
went away.
span.
Yeah.
So we would Uvu for a while, like literally like all night. Like I would pretend, I was like, oh, I was about to go to sleep, and I would put makeup on for a freaking video chat, like really crazy. But anyways, then honestly a while after, like he had girlfriends in between, girlfriends, quote unquote. And then we started dating in 2011. We never went to the same school, even though we lived pretty close. So we didn't go to college together. We didn't go to high school together. But we always like saw each other on the weekends. We always had very different schedules and we're very, honestly, pretty independent, I would say. We stayed together, never broke up once, even through college, even though we, I guess, technically did distance. And for a long time, people definitely, even people I care for so deeply, were like, are you sure? Like, are you sure you don't want to experiment with other people or something like that? What if you regret it? And a very valid question. Like, I don't judge people for asking me that. But for me, like, it always came back to, I'm like, if it's not like broken, like if nothing's wrong, like, and people are searching for this thing that they claim is like really special and important and powerful, like, why would I just drop it? Like, just because, just on the off chance that something might be better if things are
Well,
really
I feel like also like just going through that journey with you, Brenda, I feel like
Oh,
the
really
only
closely,
reason,
honey.
yeah, I feel like the only reason why you ever even for a second like question like should I have dated other people is because again, it's one of those things that you felt that you should do because other people were making you feel that way, not because that's anything that you actually ever felt for yourself or wanted. You only ever came to me questioning that when someone else said to you like, don't you think you should like hook up with other people? Like
Literally.
and we do that all the time. We do that all the time.
We do. And it definitely brought me like a lot of anxiety because there was this part of me that's like, should I be feeling that way? Like, should I want that? And I never wanted it. I only was confused by other people insisting that I should want it. But I will say, and Julia made this very clear to me, she was like, no one is like saying it as representation of who he is or who you are together. It's just like what people think people should do through college. So anyways, then I moved back home. I went to school in Connecticut. I went to Quinnipiac, and then I came back home. I lived with my parents for a little bit, and then literally 6 months ago, he's a really good saver. I'm not when it comes to money, but we bought a house a couple months ago, so that's where I am now. And it's just like it's so special, and it's like something that I would have never.
It's so adult.
It's really adult, but I give him so much credit. I give myself more credit now, but it's been so cool, and like living together is a whole other chapter that I'm sure we could go into on a part 2, so I don't like blab forever. But it's been so special and so eye-opening. But I've never been more sure that like I'm so glad that I didn't listen to people who tried to convince me for whatever reason that like, are you sure? Because I'm sure.
But we just love like unwarranted opinions. We just love those.
Right.
Love them and we live for them.
We should all
give
take
your
them.
opinions that I didn't ask for.
100%.
Your expert opinions too.
Yeah, right. Because all those people giving that opinion were in such great relationships at that time that they were so happy.
Well, I feel like on that note, we should get into today's letter. And Alex is our number 1 letter reader. So I am going to make him do it unless he wants me to do it.
Let's do it. All right. Let's begin with Dear Damsels, I just graduated college and moved home. I feel like a total loser as I was going to move to NYC with my boyfriend and he broke up with me right after graduation. We dated all of college, and now I feel like I wasted my best years of my life. I'm heartbroken. I have nothing going for me and no prospects. I've been applying to jobs, but nothing is landing, and I don't know what to do with myself. None of my friends are here because they all have jobs and lives, so all I do is spend time with my parents. How do I move on? Stop feeling sorry for myself and start living my life? ? Sincerely, lost in love and life. Ugh.
Hi, little
baby. You're not lost.
No, not lost. I mean, the fact that they're writing in and seeking advice, I think that says a lot as far as, they're in the right path. I mean, it must be devastating to not have like the close friends from college around, but there's something beautiful about finding oneself in solitude and figuring out what are the next steps. But what are your thoughts?
I feel like it's a two-part answer because I feel like there's 2 different things going on here. Number 1, listen to Rawring 20s podcast because everybody after college is lost. Like I do not know one person, no matter how it looked on Instagram or no matter what they were saying to the people around them, I do not know one person that had it all together after college. Not one. Literally not one in more than one area of their life. So I mean, that's what we do on our show. So come over here so you can feel less alone because you're not alone, babe. First, I'll talk about the relationship part because I went through what I thought was like the worst breakup ever. Like 2 years after college, someone who I started dating in college. We lived together, like serious relationship, thought this was gonna be my person. Like I, quote unquote, like gave up my senior year of college for him, doing like that stuff that I'm sure you letter writer felt like you had done. And when that relationship ended, I totally thought like, oh my God, like I wasted all this time on this person. I can tell you for certain that everything happens for a reason. And that breakup was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I didn't feel that way at the time, but I certainly feel that way now. And you will too. Like, I promise you, you will soon look back and know that it was probably for the best, because it gave me the opportunity to like really discover what I want and who I want to be. And I would just use that opportunity now. And I know it's really hard. And I know that it probably at the moment feels like the biggest loss and that you wasted your time, but you didn't, because everything that I learned from that relationship, I could have never learned without it, or I would have learned it way later. Like, it's so amazing. Like, to learn that what you learned from that relationship at college age is a blessing. Most people have to wait and learn that later on because they don't maybe have such a serious relationship until like later in their 20s. To be able to like look back and take so much that you have learned, and I promise, even if you feel like you didn't learn anything, you did. I remember saying to my mom, like right after the breakup, I'm like, I would understand if like this breakup happened because I needed to learn something, but I don't think I have anything to learn from this. I literally said those words to my mother. Like, I literally said that. And looking back now, I'm like, holy shit, I learned so much about myself, about what I want in a relationship, about what I don't want in a relationship, about partnership, about self-worth. Like, I learned so much. And I promise you that even if it doesn't feel this way right now, you will. And the best advice that I have on getting there is start doing things for you. Make a morning routine. Get a hobby that you like. Join a class, anything. Like, do you like to paint? Get in a painting class. You'll also meet people, which is like great for dating. Like, just start doing things that you love, even if that's just going out for a 10-minute walk every day. Start with something small, one thing, just one thing. And doing those little things and those things compounding are going to help, because time does heal, but also self-work like is a big part of that. And like just starting with one thing that you love doing for you is going to put you on that journey to doing the work. And I like talk about this totally in depth on the show. So if you like want to come and listen to it and like hear about all the healing things that I did and that like we've had friends on doing too, you're not alone. And it does take time, but you'll get there.
Yeah. And I can tell you guys from like genuine experience, through being Julia's phone call the night that the breakup happened and, and bed to share for a couple of nights thereafter, like, your people around you love you and want to support you. And if you don't feel like you have those people, it's okay. Like, that's honestly part of what we do on the show is like trying to build that community, trying to help you see that like, and also additional, Julia did not take a single moment off of the show, right? So she went through this traumatic breakup to the point where I was like, okay, she's a strong bitch. I know that in my soul, but like, what's going to happen from here? Like, it genuinely felt like a groundbreaking thing, obviously for her and for everyone around her, because nobody was expecting it. But I will say that like, you'll hear through the depths of her healing and through us having someone on the show that we actually really admire who now talks about dating and breakups and everything. And I know, like, if you are in the place right now, just based on how I've watched Julia receive it, like at the time, the week after the breakup, somebody told her, like, you won't see the purpose of this now, but like a couple of months from now, a couple of weeks from now, like you'll understand and you'll be grateful for it. And I felt her resistance of like, I want to believe that, but I don't know if that's true. Like, I don't know if that's true for me. And now there is nothing Julia believes more than that it was a blessing, So just knowing that it will the pain that you feel right now, or the discomfort or anything that you might be experiencing, it's not your forever. And knowing that you can surround yourself with better people, you will have better prospects when it comes to life, career, everything. And the only thing that you have to do is keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it doesn't have to be grand, and it can be small, just like Julia's saying, but it's, at the end of the day, it really comes down to just not giving up and not, getting in your own way every day and doing the little things that you can to build yourself back up, and know that you are already a complete person. And although it might sound hypocritical or confusing, because obviously we all want love and connection and belonging, like, you are already a whole person. And when you are ready, when the universe is ready, however you want to look at it, you'll have that person that's going to complement you and what you're looking for, but you don't need them to be worthy of a fulfilling life.
When you graduate college, you're expected to have everything together and be this adult person. Like, I think because you're the oldest in the school, it's thought that you should, have all of your responsibilities in check, know exactly what you're meant to do. But in reality, you are still so young, like so young. And, besides the breakup part, the thing that I actually want to touch on is spending time with your parents is something that you should feel really grateful for. And
oh my God, such a blessing.
But like, this time that you're getting with your parents right now, like, you're not going to get this when you become an adult. Like, I feel so grateful for the time that I had with my parents during the pandemic when I came home, because my parents are across the country. It's not time that I ever thought that I would get, just to go home and like be a kid again and be with them in the household. And honestly, like, I would just try to be grateful for the little things happening to you right now. Alejandro is our number one gratitude person, and just like be thankful for this time with your parents. And I know that's so silly, and I know it's hard because you're going through such a difficult time, but just try to see the benefit of that, because it's not something you'll get in the future. The other thing I want to say is, I have a friend who graduated college. She didn't have a job. She was feeling really lost. She had no idea what she wanted to do, but what she knew was that she loved food. Specifically, she loved cheese and working with cheese. And she was like, what the hell do I do with that? She started working at a cheese shop. She just worked at like a little cheese shop in New York, making mozzarella, because she knew she really liked doing that, and she knew she needed a job. Now she has her own charcuterie company. Okay. So seriously, if you're at home, just think about what you like doing. As simple as that. It doesn't have to be the dream job. It just has to be a little step. It just has to be that 1 foot forward, like Brenda said. If you like pottery, can you intern at the pottery place nearby? If you really like yoga, can you be the front desk receptionist at the yoga studio? Just to do something that you like, to take yourself out of the house, get yourself out of your own head, because honestly, that's going to mean more to you and help you out of this little funk that you're in more than you're willing to know right now.
Also, like, I know that there's such a shame around like moving back with your parents after college, but like, Brenda did it, so many of our friends did it, like, and honestly, that's also a blessing and something to be really grateful for, because you have the opportunity. Like, I assume you're not paying like your parents full rent. Maybe you are, I don't know, but I would assume not. And that gives you the opportunity to like do exactly what Lauren said, like, go get a job that maybe wouldn't be able to like pay the full rent right up front, but that like would give you a foot in the door. That's something that could down the line that you also love. Like, you have the opportunity to like take like the lower level job at a place that you really love, because, and then you could work yourself up, like, instead of feeling like you just need to take like whatever the highest paying job right at the moment is that you might not love. It's really a great opportunity to like try some things and like try things that, you might not have even thought about before. And we always hear this advice of like, listen. And if you don't know what that is, like, listen to what the people around you are telling you you're good at. And like, are you really, do people come to you and always say like, oh, you're really good at giving advice? Okay, like, maybe that's something to do. Maybe you want to be a therapist. Like, maybe you want to be a podcaster. Like, maybe, it's hard sometimes to like hear those things when we're so busy thinking about like what we should be doing, like we always say. But if you take a step back to kind of listen to what people are telling you, you might find it. And also, the other thing that we've learned from doing this show, from so many successful women, like unbelievably successful, wealthy, high achieving women, is that almost every single one of them that we have interviewed on our show was lost. right after college or in their early 20s was working the lowest level job at the place they didn't like, or didn't have a job at all, or had just been fired, or didn't know what they wanted to do. And like, I know it sounds like, okay, well, it happened to them, but like, what if it doesn't happen to me? Hearing those stories, use that to inspire you. Like, if they can do it, I can do it too. And like, that has been something inspiring for Brenda and I when we felt really lost after college, of just like, oh, like all these fucking badass women, they did not have it all together right at 22. They did not. So it's okay that we don't either. And I know it feels in a social media world where we're all comparing ourselves all the time, it feels really sucky, but just having that reminder is going to help, like, do what Brenda said of just getting up every day and putting one foot in front of the other.
Also, I want to add to that, the negative self-talk is not going to be conducive to you getting further in life. Like, I want you to, maybe the first step is to, turn that negative self-talk into positive. When you wake up in the morning, look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I got this. That's all it has to be. Or Brenda has a lovely list for you that I'm going to force her to put up on the Rawring 20s website.
I love it.
So you can download it and then, like, use those affirmations and mantras to start your day with positivity.
Yeah, I love it.
Brenda and Julia, ladies of the Rawring 20s, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Please tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, of course. You guys can find us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm sure, just like these awesome people in our circle here. So I feel like an Apple podcast is a really great place because you can leave a review. I guess you can on Spotify too. But in terms of social media, our handle is at Rawring20s podcast. And then our emails are raw@gmail.com. Yes,
RAW, Rawring, raw.
And then on any of our show notes, you can find our personal pages too.
Yay! Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys.
It was so fun.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Damsels in the DMs.
Until next time.
It's going down in the DMs.
Bye.
DMs, we don't need them. We just leave them.
Please.
Yeah.
It's going down in the DMs. Bye.